Don't soul roll me if you get quad fours, man.
King, jack, jack.
You folded king, jack, jack?
I was either gonna raise or fold.
What the fuck? You owe me $350. Thank you, sir.
I knew there was a reason why you checked the flop.
Thank you, sir. Doing the Lord's work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. I'm going to showcase some key hands for my first time ever on a live stream at Texas Card House, Austin. Be aware that this game was 1-2 with a mandatory $5 bring-in, buy-ins of $200 to $1,000, and players were allowed to match the biggest stack as the night progressed. The graphics are going to show the bring-ins of $5 as raises, and there are some hands where the pot, stack, or bet sizes may be off, but most of the time they're on point. We're under the gun and dealt King-Queen 10-8 suited in diamonds to our king. Being under the gun with a hand like this isn't amazing. We have coordination between the cards, but there are a decent amount of gaps around that weaken it somewhat. Still, at a table that hasn't been overly aggressive, we can try and limp in and see if we can get to the flop cheaply. So there's 4 callers behind us, and then Uncle T in the big blind wakes up with ace-ace, queen-6 double suited in spades and clubs, and he opts to raise it up to $35. The problem here is that while he has a very nice hand, he can't raise enough to thin the field, so now all he's doing is playing a bloated pot out of position against the entire field. We make the call with a reasonably coordinated hand, and we wind up going 5 ways to a flop. The flop falls 9-8-3 rainbow, and here is where Uncle T messes up. Actions on him, he's 5 ways to a 9-high rainbow board, and he announces pot betting $180. You'll even notice my stink face after he makes the bet. That's because I had him identified as a tight, aggressive player. So his raise pre-flop just screams aces or kings to me, and this flop is absolutely horrible for his range. Yet he's barreling into a field where his opponents are going to have the range advantage over him. In his shoes, I'm checking and praying it gets checked through, and maybe I can pick up some equity on the turn. But anyway, he bets the pot, and with action on us, we just have a gut shot to the nuts, needing to hit a jack to get there, and we have second pair. With multiple opponents behind us, we can't profitably make this call, so we let it go. Now, surprisingly, Patty, holding queen-jack 5-5 rainbow, makes the call here with just the gut shot straight draw and an underpair. And her actions here are going to be a deciding factor in a huge hand I play against her at the end of this episode. Actions on Michael, and he's flopped an open-ended straight draw plus top pair. It's not amazing. I'd much rather have another card to give us a wrap straight draw in his position, but if he puts his opponent on aces in this spot, I prefer he raises, and here's why. If we remove all the other hands from the board, and he's just playing against the guy with aces here, and we don't have the information we see now that some of his outs are gone, he's an equity favorite against the aces, with 56%. And the reason is that not only can he make the straight and have the aces drawing virtually dead except for runner flush, but he can also make 2 pair to outdraw the aces as well. Now, with Patty calling in between and another player behind, maybe he wanted to see a good turn card before committing, but the problem there is that he allows others in when his hand against 3 others isn't all that strong, but heads up against the aces it is. Plus, him raising here will put a ton of pressure on the player with aces to continue facing such aggression on a board that is terrible for them. Now it gets to JR, and I love his play. He's got top pair plus the wrap straight draw, albeit the bottom end. But after he raises, the betting is reopened. And if the player with aces winds up re-raising to isolate, then he's going to be in amazing shape, as his hand is almost a 58% equity favorite against the aces. Again, with us not knowing the cards he needs are already in other players' hands. And he'll have some dead money up for grabs sweetening the pot. Now, Uncle T just calls the raise, and I'm not a fan of this. He's facing 3 opponents. The only safe turn card is going to be one of the 2 remaining aces. If he's going to continue here, I prefer to see him re-raise and push out the other 2 players, or just find the fold button. I think calling is probably the worst option because he's not protecting his equity in the hand, and he's flying blind. So now after his call, Patty once again calls off almost her entire stack with just the gut shot draw here, and Michael has almost half his stack invested as well. The turn pairs the 8, which is good and bad for Uncle T. On one hand, it gives him the nut 2 pair of aces up. However, facing 3 opponents in this spot who have all committed all or most of their chips, the 8 could easily have hit one of them. It winds up checked around, and the river falls the case 8. Because if you remember, I folded king-queen 10-8 on the flop, so I miss out on making quads and winning a huge pot. Uncle T winds up making runner boat, and this is when I get to see Patty turn over Queen Jack 5-5. So remember that she limped in, she called a preflop raise with it, and then on a 9-8-3 flop, she called multiple large bets and raises for almost all of her chips with an underpair and a gutshot straight draw to the nuts, and that's it. Again, this will factor into my decision in a big hand later. 4 players limp in, and I'm on the button holding 10-10, 9-3, double suited in diamonds and hearts. Our flush draws aren't anything to get excited about. More often than not, they'll just get us in trouble. The 3 dangler in our hand also isn't doing us any favors. However, it's a limped pot, and we have key cards that make multiple straights since we hold 2 10s plus a 9. So given we have position on the field in an unraised pot, I'm fine coming along and trying to flop something. We wind up going 6 ways to a flop of 9 deuce with 2 clubs. The entire field checks to me, and I decide to bet. And my reasoning is that the deuce isn't a card that's commonly played by many players. In addition, we have a 9 in our hand, so there's only one combination of pocket 9s possible out in the wild. Players with club draws may not want to chase out of position to me when the board is already paired. I could have 9s full already in this spot, and if we do get looked up, we can just shut down if we don't improve, and if we get raised, it's an easy fold. Now, I don't know if the graphics were wrong, as JR is shown as having a deuce in his hand and winds up folding, but they all fold and we take the small pot down. The $10 straddle is on, there's one caller in early position before it reaches us in the hijack, and we look down at ace-king, queen-9 suited in clubs to our ace. We could raise to isolate and take position here, but we've seen many of our opponents don't like to fold, plus our hand plays well multi-way, as we really want to let someone with a king-high club draw in who might pay us off if we hit. We wind up going 6 ways to a flop of ace-10-8 with 2 diamonds. The pot is checked around, and the turn falls the queen of spades. JB is under the gun +1, and he bets the pot and actions on us. We've just turned top 2 pair, but a number of straights also just came in. However, we do have a 9 and a king in our hand, so we block both straights, and we can hit the jack to make the straight as well. JB has shown himself to be pretty aggressive and willing to bluff, so I don't buy that he has the straight, but my hand also isn't strong enough to raise, so I just make the call. Action folds to Patty on the button. Patty has the stone cold nuts having turned Broadway. In addition, she also has the second nut flush redraw, which includes a royal flush draw. She just calls. I'd prefer to see her raise in this spot since her queen high flush draw is vulnerable to the king high draw as well as the board pairing. So she should want to protect her hand and charge her opponents to outdraw her. We go 3 ways to a river, which is the brickest of bricks, the stickiest of the icky, the 3 of spades, and JB continues his aggression betting 210. Given I block both straight draws and JB has gotten out of line a few times and been more aggressive than others at the table, in the moment I just decide I don't believe what he's selling and I make the call. Yeah, not all of my reads are right. Sue me. Anyway, now the action's on Patty, and she should be loving this spot. She's last to act on the river, facing a pot-sized bet and a caller in between, and she has these stone-cold nuts. She cannot lose. The house doesn't take rake from the pot, so raising isn't going to cost her any money. She can only make more money. She should absolutely 100% be raising here, and this again is going to factor into a big decision I face later in the stream. Patty just calls, with the nuts, last to act. She scripts this pot and tells us afterwards that she thought all 3 of us had the same hand, which is why she didn't raise. In this hand, we're playing a double board bomb pot. I'm dealt king-king, 4-3, double suited in hearts and diamonds. The flops come out king-10-4 with 2 clubs, and ace-10-5 rainbow. Action winds up checking through on the flop, and you may be wondering, Poker Jesus, why aren't you betting with top set? You have the nuts. Yes, I do. I do have the nuts on the top board. And shit, I have a gutshot straight draw to the wheel on the bottom board, plus backdoor nut hearts. But my hand is not that exciting, and here's why. On the top board where I have top set, I don't block the straight or flush draws, so my set is very vulnerable to those hitting. In addition, there's a 4 on that board, and I have a 4 in my hand, making it harder for me to fill up. But that's not all. There's a 10 on both boards, again making it more difficult for me to fill up. And on the bottom board, I just have a gutshot draw to the wheel, which is nothing to get overly excited about. Anyway, we go to the turns which come the ace of spades and the ace of clubs, so now on the top board the Broadway draw has hit, plus a spade draw has materialized. And on the bottom board, it's paired aces. While we now have the nut 2 pair on that board, any one of our opponents could be holding the case ace and have us beat. Kenny has turned aces full on the bottom board, and he leads out for $65. He knows he has that board locked up, as no one can outdraw his full house. He has the only ace left in the deck. When it folds to me, I make the call, but I'm not thrilled about it. I've played with Kenny before, and he's a solid, tight, aggressive player. He's not some maniac blasting off. I'm the only caller, and the rivers fall the 9 of spades and the queen of spades. Kenny shoves for his last $210 and actions on me, and I'm getting 2-1 on a call here, but I'm worried at best I'm only playing for half the pot, and it's quite possible I could be getting scooped. So I'm either calling $200 to win $100, or I'm throwing away $200. And it's not really a great spot, since Kenny could easily have me destroyed on both boards with these runouts. So I wind up letting it go, and I think it's the right decision given this particular opponent and the runouts. In this hand, JR in the low jack brings it in with a nice double-suited ace-10, 8-6 holding, and then Kenny surprises me from the hijack, raising ace-9, 7-3 with 3 hearts in his hand. Rahul comes along on the button, and now in the big blind I look down at ace-ace, 9-2, suited in clubs to my ace. I just call, and there's a few reasons for it. The first reason is that we don't have great aces. The 9 is a dangler that doesn't connect with our other cards except by its suit, and while the 2 connects with our ace to make a straight, it's never going to flop the nut straight. So with a couple of shitty side cards and being out of position, plus facing a raise from a guy that is generally a solid, tight, aggressive player, and having too deep a stack to commit stacks pre-flop, I opt to just call. We go 4 ways to a flop of jack 7-2 with 2 clubs. We flop the nut flush draw and an overpair. Our 9 blocks anyone drawing to the straight, but in this spot, I don't want to just let this hand check through and allow an 8, 9, or 10 to roll off on the turn and let someone outdraw me. Unless I'm up against pocket jacks, pocket 7s, or a rundown type hand that contains a jack and a 7, my aces should be good on this flop. And obviously, I have the nut flush draw as backup. This flop shouldn't be good for the pre-flop raisers range as much as the callers, so I lead right out for the pot of $85. Again, the graphics are off, and all our opponents wind up folding, and we'll take this one down. This hand starts with D's nuts under the gun, raising it with ace-king, 9-3, and 3 diamonds to his ace. There are 3 callers, and in the big blind, we are holding ace-queen, 9-8 suited and spades to our ace. Certainly a playable hand multi-way, so we come along and we're going 5 ways to a flop. The flop comes down the very pretty queen 10-5 with 2 spades. Being first to act, we check, hoping someone will bet, so we can check raise their ass. It's checked around to the aggressive JB, who doesn't disappoint, betting $75 while holding 10-6, 5-4, suited in clubs to his 5. He's flopped bottom 2 pair, but there aren't a lot of turn cards he'll be happy with, and on a board like this, he could already be beat. And sure enough, he is beat as Rahul is in there holding queen 6, 5-4. He makes the call with top and bottom pair. With action on us, we're facing a bet from a player we know to be overly aggressive, and a call from a player in between. We flop top pair, top kicker, the nut flush draw, and a gut shot straight draw, and we're going for it and apply max pressure, check raising the pot. JB gets out of the way, and Rahul eventually finds the full button as well. In this spot, without knowing other cards that have been folded, if we take my hand up against both of theirs on this particular flop, we have close to 62% equity 3 ways, even though they both have me currently beat with 2 pair. And that's because we not only have the nut flush draw and the gut shot straight draw, but we can also hit an ace, 9, or 8 to make a bigger 2 pair. So we have such a huge portion of the deck in our favor that we're ahead of made hands. In this hand, Rahul has limped from under the gun, and in the low jack, I come along with a single-suited rundown of 9-8, 7-6. 2 other players tag along before JB in the big line pots it to 30. We all call, and the flop comes down absolutely beautiful with 8-6-6 and 2 diamonds. I flopped a full house, the second nuts. JB is unlucky, as he raised with a hand similar to my own, and he's flopped a well-disguised 3 of a kind, not realizing the absolute danger he's in. He bets the pot of 150, and I decide to slow play my hand and just call. Yes, there's concern I could get outdrawn by a higher pocket pair on the turn, but that's worrying about a 2-outer. And when you're facing an aggressive player like this, oftentimes they continue applying aggression on later streets when you're only calling their bets and not raising them back, because they're just used to barreling multiple streets until their opponents surrender. JR has flopped the nut flush draw, but makes a good fold, given the board is paired and he could be, and is, drawing dead. The turn is beautiful in offsuit 4, and now JB has turned the nut straight, and he blocks full houses, so he continues his aggression, betting the full pot of 450. Calling is just silly at this point, given my stack size, so I ship it all in, he makes the call, and he's drawing dead. His only out is to hit a 9 to chop the pot with me. We agree to run it twice, and I hold on both runouts to scoop a massive pot. 6 players have limped in, and in the big line I look down at a fairly junky queen 10, 5-4, suited and hearts to my 5. I call the additional $3, and we go 7 ways to a flop of Ace Jack 3 Rainbow. Uncle T reaches for chips in the small blind and bets the full pot of 35, having flopped top set, well disguised because he didn't raise them pre-flop this time. Action is immediately on me, and I flop 2 gut shots. I need the king or the deuce to make the nuts on this board, and I decide to call and peel one off, see one more street. JB comes along with a gut shot to Broadway as well. The turn couldn't be any prettier, falling the 2 of diamonds. If I was in an Uncle T seat, I'd think that turn card was a brick and good for my hand as well, so he continues firing, betting the pot of 140. Now action's on me, and if Mama taught me anything, it's don't slow play. I've been drawn out too many times slow playing vulnerable hands. A diamond draw has shown up on the turn, and the board could pair on the river as well. Based on how Uncle T is playing this, I suspect he's either flopped top 2 pair, maybe a set of jacks. I wasn't really putting him on aces since earlier we saw him raise with them and continue firing on a board that wasn't great for his range. So I want to bet pot to protect my hand from flush and full house draws since the pot is becoming sizable. Uncle T tells me he has to call, which in my mind solidifies that he's got a set of some kind in the spot. So he makes the call and we've got a pot of over $1,200. And we're going to the river, and I'm just praying to Poker Jesus to keep it clean. When the river falls the 8 of hearts, I know my prayers have been answered. Uncle T checks it over to me, and at this point I figure he's got the set, but the board texture hasn't changed. I think if I just shove here, he might find the fold button given my tight image. I don't see him paying me off for my entire stack. Now, that's based on my believing he has a set of jacks. If I knew he had a set of aces here, I might go for all of it. But if he has a set of jacks, he has to be concerned I have a set of aces, which was what went through my mind at the time. Anyway, I opt for a tiny 1/4 size bet to extract value from the hand I expect he has, and I put out 300. And it works as he quickly calls. Damn, maybe I should have bet more. And he winds up seeing the bad news, and we're going to win a nice pot. All right, this is it, the hand of the night, the moment you've all been waiting for. We're nearing the end of the live stream. I'm currently the second biggest winner of the evening. I'm up somewhere around $1,1600, and Yanni in the low jack comes in for a raise to $15 holding King Queen, Jack 8 suited and clubs to his king. Yanni only recently sat down and told us he only had about 30 minutes to play, which was fine because that was going to be the end of the stream anyway. He's also on a pretty short stack. So when I wake up with a premium Ace Queen 8 suited in the cutoff, I repot to 50 to isolate him. I do not, in fact, isolate him, as both the small blind and big blind call my raise, and Yanni comes along as well. So we're going 4 ways to a flop with $200 already in the middle. The flop comes down Ace King 5 Rainbow, and everyone checks it over to me, and I've been criticized by some for my bet sizing here as I wind up betting the full pot of $200. You can certainly bet 100 to 125 here, but that's probably more optimal from a game theory perspective. I have some players who just like to call in this mix, and while I have the current nuts and I block the Broadway draw, there are 2 straight draws to worry about, so a 2, 3, 4, 10, Jack, or Queen on the turn could put me behind, and if they want to draw to those hands, I'm charging them the max. Patty on the small blind has flopped bottom 2 pair, backdoor nut hearts, and a backdoor Broadway draw, and she calls my full pot size bet from out of position. And if you watch my face here, you'll see I have a confused look on my face, a what the fuck can you be calling with look. The turn is the brickest of bricks, the 7 of clubs, completing the rainbow board and not completing any straights. Patty once again checks, and I again go for max value and protection, betting the full pot of $600.
7 of clubs now on the turn. Patty here drawing dead with her 3 pair.
Gonna face another large bet from Poker Jesus in a collision of big stacks.
Now Patty has turned 3 pair. She's drawing stone cold dead. She doesn't know it, and she makes the call. Again, if you watch the footage, you'll see my expression of complete disbelief when I bet the full pot, and again, she's calling. The river is a 10, and Patty immediately jams all in, and action's on me. Now, in the moment, I was thinking that Patty had more chips than she actually does. I thought she had me covered because earlier in the evening she did. She had a huge stack of greens, or multiple stacks of greens on the other side of her reds. But given my seat at the table and how she had been keeping her big stacks of greens on the opposite side of those red stacks where I couldn't really view them, plus I had D's nuts in between us, I couldn't see completely given the player there. I suppose I should have asked for a count, but I thought she had me covered and I was more focused on figuring out what her hand was. At this point, the pot is 1800 plus her shove, which, again, I thought covered me. I had around 16 to 1700 remaining in my stack, and I think she only had about 1,000 left, but again, I thought she had me fully covered. So my thought process was that her insta-shove on the river looks bluffy. Typically, when you make a strong hand and you want to get paid, you'll take some time. You'll think about how much to bet, etc. However, at the same time, some players get excited when they make a strong hand, and they just shovel their chips in quickly. So then I have to figure out what hand range can I possibly put Patty on here. The flop of Ace-King-5 Rainbow only presents 2 straight draws, and she called my pot size bet out of position. The turn didn't complete those draws, and facing another pot size bet of 600, once again she just calls. She's called off half her chips practically. I think at that point in the hand, if my opponent was drawing to the wheel, they give it up. And if my opponent had flopped, top 2 pair aces and kings, which is very unlikely because I blocked the shit out of that. There's 1 ace left in the deck. So if she flopped top 2 pair, or if she flopped a set of kings or a set of 5s, she's probably betting or raising herself at some point, I would expect. So I don't really put her on 2 pair, or at least I don't put her on top 2 pair, and I don't put her on a set. So that only leaves the draw to Broadway. In my mind, the only possible hand that made any sense was her holding Queen Jack 10 and maybe having a pair with it as well, so maybe she's got King Queen Jack 10, for instance. And yes, I do block the nuts since I have a queen in my hand. But having played PLO for a while now, I can't tell you how many times I flopped all 3 pair, and I still run into sets. Blockers don't mean shit. I had to look back at hands Patty had previously played. She called off the majority of her stack on a 9-high flop chasing a gut shot earlier. She just called with the nut straight facing a bet and call when she was last to act on the river because she thought we all had the same hand. So overall, my view of her was that she pretty much called the majority of the time rather than raising or betting herself. And when a player who typically takes passive lines suddenly comes out firing, that's usually a sign of strength. Also at the same time, I'm on a live stream. And this is the next to last hand before the stream ends. How stupid am I going to look if I make the hero call here and I get shown the nuts? Everyone is going to be like, this guy plays PLO for a living. How could he possibly not know she's got the nuts there? What else could she possibly have? Of course she's got Queen Jack, you fucking idiot. So I made what I felt was a good fold, and looking back on it, I think in the long run my fold is correct. How often is someone going to call off half their stack out of position so they can bluff one of 3 very specific river cards? And I don't think Patty thought she was bluffing here when she shoved. I'm pretty confident had the board paired and Patty had made a full house, she was going to pay me off with her entire stack against my bigger full house. And I think in her mind, she was betting this river for value, not realizing I had the set of aces. Now, if I had made this call, I would have won the biggest pot of the night, and I would have been the biggest winner on the stream. Instead, I went from being up, 1,500, 1,600-ish to only winning 650 for the night. It's still a solid win, but it really sucks when you're so close to a huge night and the worst river card in the deck hits and you get bluffed off your hand. Now, what I am excited about is Texas Card House Live Austin will be doing a PLO stream again coming up on my birthday, Thursday, February 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be playing it again, and I hope you can all tune in. Hopefully, I'll get my revenge against Patty.
She cannot improve. It's a 10. She's got
4 pair.
She's got the famous 4 pair.
She got the 4 pair. Too bad 4 pair is not a thing. And she rips it in. He checks it over, and she just rips it in. And
no, she's first to act. She's been check calling down.
Oh, she's been calling down. Oh, okay, yeah, it is my mistake.
Oh.
So she's gonna lead all in then, and so you hear the expletives from Poker Jesus.
A little bit of table talk here. Poker Jesus giving her the grilling. To try to figure out how good she is. She is going to engage and talk back. All right, we should just shut up and let this game play out.
Damn, it's last words.
Patty casually takes a sip of her wine. Why not? Going into a little more silent mode here. Going to let Poker Jesus sweat this out on his own terms. he said he's got a blocker. He blocks the queen jack. But what is Patty calling with, right? He's got 2 of the aces. So the only thing that really makes sense is some sort of wrap. There's no turn flush draws, full badoogie on the turn. What does she call with that isn't either a flopped set of her own or a wrap? So it's a pretty tricky spot here for Poker Jesus. If there were more draws out there that had bricked, this would be an easier call. And of course, we know this is all in from Patty. We're seeing here that she's only potted it for 860 or whatever, but this is a massive pot. You can see that she's got, oh, he's gonna let it go, Poker Jesus. Folds to the 4 pair.
She shows it!
4 pairs of the nuts anyway, so you want now. 4 pair, getting it done. Patty is a PLO god. Let's go.
Let's go, Patty.
Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. Poker Jesus, let's it go. Understandable in a certain respect. I don't know exactly how much she bet into exactly what the pot was because of the mismatch in what went into the software there. But damn, I mean, that was a big bet for sure. And you have to ask yourself, what is she check calling the whole way down that isn't a wrap? Really tough to see what it is.
And that would have just ruined his night too. You wonder, like some people, like maybe they get to the end of the session, they think, well, do I really want to just get myself stuck now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been playing good all night, been running good all night, and now here I am in this cooler situation.
You know, after watching a video like this, sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I'll leave a comment, and sometimes I'll subscribe. Sometimes I'll even do all 3.